Glad to have you with us here on NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, Joel Klatt, Fox Sports college football analyst, does a terrific job covering the sport and also the NFL draft. He has his latest big board out ahead of the NFL draft coming up next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all 50 players on Joel's big board and let you hear from Joel directly, and I'll share my thoughts on his big board coming up in just a matter of moments. Before we do, we have a brand new NFL Draft channel here at Chat Sports that's bringing exclusive NFL Draft content. If you are an NFL Draft junkie, this is the channel for you. We have mock drafts for specific teams. We also have general mock drafts that look at the first round and beyond, looks at big boards. We also have player interviews from back at the Combine. It is the place to be for the diehard NFL draft fans. Check it out. Subscribe today for free. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a moment. It will be getting popping. It'll be crazy during the drafts. You'll want to head over there and subscribe to that channel today. Let's start right at the top as Klatt has Will Anderson as his number one player on his big board. And I've said for a long time that I believe that Will Anderson is the best player in this draft. And you look at what he did the last two seasons in the Southeastern Conference as a two-time Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous All-American the last 2 years. It makes sense why Will Anderson's getting all this hype. Joel Klatt on Will Anderson saying this guy is an alpha. He is one of those guys that is in the same vein of all-time great defenders in Alabama history, in particular under Nick Saban. He has the explosiveness and the get-off. I think this is a guy that can be a captain in an NFL locker room. He could be a Defensive Player of the Year because of his ability to disrupt the passing game. That's the type of player I'd love to take at number one. And with the teams that are so needy at quarterback, it seems unlikely that Anderson will be the number one pick, but there's a pretty decent chance that he's the first defensive player off the board. Speaking of the number one pick, who's it going to be? You pretty confident it's Bryce Young, or does C.J. Stroud make a late push? Do they surprise us all in Carolina and go with a guy like Will Anderson? Tell us in the comments section. This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it and tell me who you think will be the number one pick in the 2023 NFL Draft come Thursday night. We stay with the Crimson Tide for the number two player on Klatt's big board. That is Alabama quarterback Bryce Young with his selection, who most people expect to be the number one pick come Thursday to the Carolina Panthers. Number three is Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. In this position, Wilson shot up boards in the last couple of months of the draft, and he's expected to go somewhere within the top seven. The first running back on the list, Bijan Robinson, who is a generational talent, the best running back prospect we've probably seen since Saquon Barkley. He slides in at number 4 on Joel's big board. Joel saw him a lot in the Big 12 Conference on Fox. And Bijan, I got to tell you, is going to be quite the impact player for wherever he goes. Expected to be somewhere between the 5 to 25 range, thereabouts for Bijan Robinson. More from Joel on Bijan. He has a great skill set, and he played with a bad offensive line. He's just a little bit better version of what Jahmyr Gibbs is, a guy that can catch it out of the backfield, and he can run between the tackles. He has an amazing burst, amazing home run ability. To round out the top 5 after Bijan Robinson is C.J. Stroud, the quarterback from Ohio State, expected to land with the Houston Texans at 2, but there has been speculation, according to Peter King earlier in the week, that the Texans may have soured on C.J. Stroud. 6 is Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter, many people believe, is the best player in this draft. Mel Kiper has him number 1 on his big board. But Joel, not so high on Jalen Carter as of late with the events that have unfolded in the last couple of months. Here's what Klatt had to say. He is a fantastic player, a great player, a dominant player. But it is worrisome when he shows that in the most critical offseason of his life, as he's preparing for his next job, he shows up 9 pounds heavier for his pro day. That's worrisome. And, of course, we know about the charges that went back to his time there in Georgia, of the arrest that happened that ended up being a misdemeanor, won't serve jail time, but that's been a red flag for a lot of teams when they've looked at Jalen Carter, and that's kind of what Joel points to here of why he has him a little bit lower at 6. And in Joel's latest mock draft, he has Jalen falling all the way out of the top 8 with that. So something to keep in mind there. I would be surprised, though, if he gets past Seattle at 5, personally. Will Jalen Carter fall out of the top 5? Will he not end up in Seattle or one of those other 5 teams? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Tell me where you think Jalen Carter is going to go, top 5 or not. If he falls out of the top 5, type Y for yes. If not, type in for no. What are you feeling? Y for yes, in for no. Will Jalen Carter fall out of the top 5? Let me know. 7 on the list is Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. Some people think that he might be playing guard at the next level. 8 is Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State, who missed most of last year but was incredible in 2021 and played alongside 2 NFL wide receivers there at Ohio State with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave there, and yet his numbers were better than both those guys. 9, Anthony Richardson, and Joel's got some high praise about Anthony Richardson. I think that this is one of the biggest unknowns of this draft is what we get out of Anthony Richardson of if his potential is what people say it is, because what we saw in college at Florida wasn't that great, if we're going to be perfectly honest with you. But what he did at the Combine, what the measurables stack up as, you can't dispute how great of an athlete it is, but can that translate? Here's what Joel had to say. He has the ability to be the best player in the NFL. The problem is it's going to take a lot of development to get there. He has incredible traits and things you just can't teach and coach. This guy is and can be a dynamo. How about that? So some high praise saying he can be the best player in the NFL. Now he's got a ways to get there. He is a project. Doubt he's ready to go day one. But somebody's going to fall in love with that athleticism with Anthony Richardson. When the draft process started, when we were in the playoffs and starting to really go heavy on draft coverage, it looked like Anthony Richardson was going to be somewhere between that 15 to 25 range. But now it looks like he's likely to get picked ahead of Will Levis, probably a lock to be a top 5 pick there, and might even have a team trade up for him to get into that top 5 to land Anthony Richardson. Are you all in on Anthony Richardson? Are you buying the stock on Anthony Richardson? Here's what I want to know. Are you an investor or are you a seller in Anthony Richardson? Would you buy stock now or would you be selling? I'm very curious what you think about this. Let us know in the comments section. Are you investing in the Anthony Richardson stock or are you selling it right now? Type I for investor, S for seller. Let us know in the comments section below. Rounding out the top 10 for Joel Klatt is Myles Murphy, the edge rusher out of Clemson. His stock has really gone all over the place. We saw him at one point as early as top 5, and we've seen him as late as the back end of the first round potentially. A real great unknown when it comes to Myles Murphy. Moving ahead a little quicker now, we'll roll through more of these here. 11, Joey Porter Jr., the corner out of Penn State. He, of course, is the son of Joey Porter, the former Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker. Devin Witherspoon falls in, the corner out of Illinois with the number 12 spot here. While 13, we see another corner. That is Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon with this selection there as we start to see the run on corners start to go in this board, and we're expecting to see a lot of corners selected within the first round of this draft. Another receiver, that's where we find Jordan Addison out of USC with this selection, falling in at 14. And Jordan Addison had a great year at Pitt, not as great at USC, but not bad this past year there. We find our first tight end of the draft. That's Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame at 15. A lot of excitement about what he could potentially bring to the table. 16, another receiver. That's Quentin Johnston from TCU, and he's not going to the draft. The NFL ultimately didn't invite him because there's talk that he might slide out of the first round potentially, but we've seen other boards that have had him within the top 15 potentially. 17, Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Nolan Smith was a freak at the Combine with what his measurables stacked up as somebody who gets him is getting a heck of an athlete. Another running back, that's Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, another Crimson Tide player, and very similar to Bijan Robinson, according to Joel Klatt, based on his analysis earlier. 17, that's where we find offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr., and looks like he's projected to go somewhere in the top 15. Maybe New England could be where he ends up, or Tennessee for that matter. 20, Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. He's seen his stock climb quite a bit here within recent weeks. A very young football player with a lot of potential. Another offensive tackle, we go to Georgia again. Seems like we're saying Georgia, Ohio State, or Bama about every sentence at this point. Broderick Jones, offensive tackle of Georgia here. Very physical, tough player. More so of a traditional tackle in that sense. Another tight end, we go Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. And Klatt earlier said that he could be the next Jason Witten potentially, of who he reminded him of. 23, that's where we find Brian Branch out of Alabama. Could play corner, could play safety. We'll see ultimately where he ends up his position-wise in the NFL. Meanwhile, Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee, slides in at 24. To round out the top 25, that is where we find Brian Bresee, the defensive tackle from Clemson, with this selection there. We got the other 25 to get to in a moment. Before we do, the NFL Draft is live on Chat Sports. We will be with you for all 7 rounds on our main NFL channel. That would be NFL Daily is the show here by Chat Sports. You can find us on YouTube, also Rumble as well. Subscribe today. Check out our NFL Draft coverage. We're going to break down every single pick as it happens in real time. Myself, I'll be there. Tom Downey, Chase Sr., Will Scott, Matthew Peterson, Marshall Green, our entire crew, Mitchell Renz, everybody. Going to be a heck of a time on our draft show. You will not want to miss it. We will have you covered. Join us for all 3 rounds beginning on Thursday and ending on Saturday. NFL Draft live on Chat Sports. You will not want to miss it. Subscribe today. Turn on notifications so you make sure to join us. 26, that's where we find Zay Flowers, the receiver out of Boston College who broke a lot of records at BC. You can make a case. He might be the greatest receiver to ever come out of Boston College. 27, Keely Ringo, we find in this position out of Georgia. He's seen his stock jump up quite a bit. Also from Georgia, Darnell Washington, the tight end, very good blocking tight end. He'll need to work on his receiving skills in the next level, but sounds like scouts are pretty confident that he could develop there. 29, Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. At one point was projected to be a 3rd-round pick. Now it looks like there's a decent chance that he slides into the 1st round. Osiris Torrance at 30, according to Joel. With Osiris Torrance, early on in the draft process, looked like he was in good position to be a late 1st-round pick. Now looking more than likely an early 2nd-round pick. Could somebody reach to get Osiris Torrance, who's a very good guard that came from the Sun Belt Conference, was 1st-team All-Sun Belt, goes to the SEC, was 1st-team All-SEC this past year when he followed Billy Napier over there. 31, that's where we find Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle from Michigan. The Michigan man there, that's a heck of an athlete, somebody to watch out for sure. 32, Will McDonald. As a Big 12 football fan, I am so glad that Will McDonald is out of the conference and headed to the NFL. Edge rusher, I think he's kind of under the radar a little bit here. He might make it to the 1st round, might be a 2nd-round guy, but I would tell you, I don't want to face Will McDonald. I want Will McDonald on my team, personally. That's at 33. We find Kalijah Cansey, the defensive tackle from Pitt. 34, there he is. About time. Will Levis shows up. Welcome to the party, Will Levis. If you were going through this mock draft, you may have noticed we haven't talked to Will Levis yet. I know that Mel's got him pretty high as his number 4 player overall, but Joel not as high, and for good reason, on Will Levis. I love his traits. He's got a huge arm, but he did throw a few too many picks, too many times. It was a mistake that cost them or a turnover that cost him. And that's absolutely right when it comes to Will Levis, is the intangibles are there. Nobody's arguing that he looks the part, but he didn't put it all together. And there was a lot of high hopes, expectations for Will Levis entering 2022, but he disappointed. He didn't live up to what he was supposed to do, and there was a number of quarterbacks that looked better than him this past year. So kind of like we talked about with Anthony Richardson, you look at the potential, And the signs point that Will Levis should be that guy on paper, but he didn't put it all together. To me, that's worrisome. It kind of reminds me in a sense of Blaine Gabbert, which, let's be honest here, you don't want to be mentioned in the same breath as Blaine Gabbert. So what team will draft Will Levis? He took a visit to New England this week. You have potential interest with Indy at 4. Where does he go? And if he starts to slide, how far does he slide? Is Vegas even potentially interested? What team will land Will Levis? Tell us what you think in the comment section below where he will end up getting drafted. At 35, that is where we find BJ in this slot, Ojulari, the edge rusher from LSU, who is starting to get some more love and climb up some more boards. He was a force to be reckoned with in the Southeastern Conference. 36, that is where we find FAU, the edge rusher from K-State, King Felix, a guy that is super athletic and I think has a pretty decent future in the National Football League. And we'll see. He might take a little bit longer to develop, but watch out, give him time. He could do something special. Trenton Simpson at linebacker from Clemson. When you look at the linebacker position, it's a little bit down this year, but Trenton Simpson should be a guy that competes for playing time right away. Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver from Tennessee. This is somebody that is going to be an outside threat wherever he ends up going, that you're going to try to turn him into a deep ball catching receiver to try to fly down the field. So if you're a team that loves to throw the football, Jalen Hyatt could be your guy there. 39, that's where we find edge rusher Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. 40, safety Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M slides into that spot. The final 10 names, Cam Smith, whose stock has climbed a lot with the run on corners we're expecting. There's a chance he could end up in the first round. Same thing with Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes broke the FBS record for pick sixes in a college career with 6 total there at Mississippi State. We go to the FCS to find Cody Mock, the offensive tackle from North Dakota State. He's been climbing up boards as of late. John Michael Schmitz, who some believe is the best center in this draft at 44. I would expect him to go early second. Center as a position has been kind of undervalued the last couple of years. And as of late, we've seen a pretty decent track record of centers in the draft, from Tyler Linderbaum last year to the Baltimore Ravens, to Creed Humphrey the year prior to the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe John Michael Schmitz could join that class. 45, that's where we see Hendon Hooker slide in, the quarterback from Tennessee. He's 25 years old, played in kind of a cookie-cutter offensive sorts there at Tennessee under Josh Heupel. And then he's coming off a torn ACL. Some 3 negatives that are in his way. But if you look at what he did on the field, this was a guy before the injury. He was on his way to being the Heisman Trophy winner, to taking Tennessee to the college football playoff. And a lot of people focus in on what he did this year. He was really good last year, too. Here's more from Joel. What he did for Tennessee this year was quite remarkable. What I love about Hooker is his growth and development over the past couple of years. If you start to project him in the NFL, I think he fits a lot of systems, in particular with his maturity and his ability to be developed. So there you have it on Hendon Hooker at 45. 5 more names to go as we wrap up here. Sam Laporta, the tight end from Iowa, slides in at 46. Another tight end, 47, Oregon State's Luke Musgrove. 48, we find DeWan Jones, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. 49, Jack Campbell, linebacker from Iowa. I thought that was kind of low, personally, for Jack Campbell. I like what he brings to the table, although there's some questions about his size, potentially. And then 50, running back Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA is the final running back to make the top 50. And I would expect him to be a day 2 guy, probably 3rd round. So what do you think of Joel's big board? That's a lot of names, 50 to be exact. How would you grade it? I think Joel's got his head in the right place. There are some things I disagree with, but it's not bad. I think his big board is at least a B for sure. I don't see it anything lower than that. I think it's a B, B plus somewhere. How would you grade it? Let me know in the comments section. Hit me up on social media too. I'm going to be talking draft over the next couple days. And I'll be on our Seahawks channel. I'll be here on NFL Daily as well. Check us out. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. And I'll see you next time right here on NFL Daily. Thanks for joining us.